welcome back to another episode of Cseking In. I am Nikki Check, your host, and I'm super excited to have in studios with me today, Ginny Becker, Executive Director of the Child Advocacy Center of Kelowna. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ginny, there's doing some background check. I see lots of things I want to ask questions about, but I'd love if you could just share with those that maybe don't know you, just a 30-second Reader's Digest version background. You've mostly been here.
Yeah, for sure. I moved here with my family in 1986, which I don't even really like saying that anymore because I recently saw something that said the 80s were as far away to the 20s as the 2023s are to the 20s. So it's starting it's broadening out.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been here, moved with my family. I was in elementary school at the time and, spent most of my adult life here. My husband and I left to go to university together to Vancouver for a period of time. But other than that, have really sort of raised a family and really pursued my entire career path here in Kelowna. So I know there's not a lot of, there's not that many true Kelownites. I feel like I'm pretty close to a true Kelowniite. Yeah, I've been here a long time.
You're pretty close.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in the middle. And then I definitely want to spend some time on the now. But you go to school, you get your Bachelor of Arts, and then I see sprinkles of education all along the way. And when I try and match that in your job positions that you held, can you, I mean, at any time early on as you're pursuing further education, was there a goalpost out here that when I grow up I want to be the executive director of the Child Advocacy Center? Or can you?
Such a great question. The actual answer is no. If 10 years you had told me where I'd be today, I actually probably would have laughed. I was never one of those people who had this linear goalpost goal in mind. My path towards where I am now has always been a bit of a meandering path of one thing that led sort of quite organically to the next thing. I actually went to do the bachelor's degree. Really my specialty there was in international war and diplomacy, which made me a really excellent essay writer at the end. But I thought I was going to go through to be a history professor. That was sort of the theory. But then what I realized about halfway through that journey was that I would be talking about the same thing forever on repeat. And that was the piece that didn't settle well. I knew I wanted to move around and do different things. So when I actually came back to Kelowna after the degree, my first goal was to work in local industry. So I ended up in the wine industry initially, and really exploring what it felt to work local.
Okay.
And following that quite literally, almost every job I had was sort of a natural evolution from that to the next, and then an opportunity that would present itself that allowed for me to dig into the next thing that was really of interest. And I've always been a lifelong learner. I'm always taking a course, doing something. And my husband will laugh at this because every single time I'm like, next time I sign up for a course, tell me that I don't like studying anymore. Remind me that I'm done with this. And I do it every single time. Yeah. I always find there's always something. I feel like there's always a way to evolve, and there's no finish line to education. You can just kind of keep growing and evolving. So for me, that's just always been kind of a path, is trying something new and then trying to find that formal education that supports that piece of the journey.
So the career path, I see you come into like enterprise, corporate, large, then you come back out into something more not for profit or nonprofit, or you did this dance back and forth. Intentional, following interest?
Somewhat. I would say the most intentional move I made along the way was my eventual sort of leap of faith into the not-for-profit sector. That was very on purpose. A lot of people always ask me, well, how did you end up in this child protection sphere? Is that your background? Which is always a very ironic answer, because no, my background was more in sales and marketing and partnership development, those types of things. And, at the end of the day, I was doing all those things and the skills were clear, but I ended up finding myself in this sort of personal purpose void where I knew I was really good at anything I set my mind to. And I felt like I was, I could bring good things to any organization, but it felt like I was just fueling an engine that had no real purpose. And that was that one big purposeful stretch was basically leaving a large organization to try to seek out something that would make me feel more connected to community and to purpose. For me, it wasn't going to be enough to just volunteer once a month, which, by the way, that's an amazing do
Absolutely.
that. But I needed it to be more part of the reason to get out of bed every day and not be with my kids needed to be something really, really purposeful. And so that I literally just went to the not-for-profit Castanet, that's the job descriptions I looked at, and just kept looking till I found one that my skills felt like they matched up. And that was sort of the most purposeful moment. Everything up to that point had been, you should come do this or these opportunities. That was a leap of faith into the unknown of just, I want to do something different.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pulling out of recall. I remember either a conversation or a feeling that I had when the Child Advocacy Center was being built out, that maybe you were going to build it out and then go. Maybe that you wouldn't. Am I remembering right?
Yeah, initially when I was brought in to work on this project, I really was brought in for those skills of relationship development, stakeholder management, those kind of pieces. And I would say that was true for me also going in. I really felt compelled to help to build the thing. Don't know if I necessarily felt early on like I was going to be the right person to lead it once it was operational. But I think that real sort of moment of clarity came when the construction was finished and walking up the stairs into the space and having this really visceral sort of moment of understanding that all we had built was a space, that the really hard work of building a system change environment was only going to begin. And that got me really excited about the next phase of the work. And, working with the board to evolve myself into that position was, again, a bit of another leap of faith on their part to some extent as well. But at that time, I was sort of the keeper of some of this knowledge, and knowing that how hard the next phase would be was way harder than the early phase, for sure. And it continues to be hard every day. It's really complex work.
So again, if I can just kind of broad stroke brush this, you're a mom, you're a wife, you are passionate about giving back in the community, and you scroll the listings to find something in not-for-profit. When you have groceries and mortgage payments and dance lessons or hockey school or whatever, is there at all a worry in working in not-for-profit to earn for contributing to the family ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. There always is. I think because the reality of the not-for-profit, and I could talk about this all day, but the not-for-profit sector is this often sort of misunderstood, really important contributor to the economy that not everybody really understands the role that we play. And, it's the whole infrastructure of not-for-profit is somewhat unsustainable without community. So there is always that, you are actively fundraising and, trying to support these organizations that are doing this really good work. And every not-for-profit's a bit different. They have different, contracts, and some do and some don't. And, but yeah, there's a bit of that. But for me, I really just knew that for me to do something at 100% of myself, I had to be passionate about it. And I just really knew I wasn't going to find that same level of passion if I couldn't find purpose in it. And, there was a few false starts there. My first foray into not-for-profit didn't end up being the job, but it did solidify that understanding for me that going home at the end of the day, thinking about the impact that you had was really key. It's very entrepreneurial in nature. It's kind of like when you own your own thing, you go home thinking about the people that you employ and the things that you're able to do through that entrepreneurial. Being a not-for-profit leader is very much akin to being an entrepreneur, because you're sort of responsible for all the moving parts, and there's something really rewarding in that.
Mm-hmm. So a couple things that I wanted to just venture down. The Child Advocacy Center, not everybody knows about the center. You would have been at the beginning of the fundraising for the capital to build out the center. It was just an idea.
Big idea.
And there was and there was a lot of stakeholders that were key in encouraging them or figuring out a way through this to get them there. Without them, if you missed one of those pieces. So do you want to talk about the child
for sure. I mean, I think it's important, I know a lot of people don't understand it. So the Child and Youth, we just changed the name, by the way, the Child and Youth Advocacy Center. That's okay. It's just be more reflective of the total demographic that we serve. I think it's important for people to understand what it is. And essentially it is a holistic wraparound service for children impacted by child abuse and neglect. So it is a purpose-built facility that houses police, child protection, victim service, healthcare, mental health care. Historically, when children would report cases like this, it created a real fractured ping pong ball effect of services doing the best they can. But there's really something to be said about building a trauma-informed, culturally safe environment where the priority is the children, not what the agencies need from them to do their job. So that's sort of the foundational piece of it. It's important to note, too, that it wasn't our idea. There's today, there's about 53 operational CYACs in the country.
In Canada?
In Canada, yeah. There's
53, Ginny.
Yeah, there's 9 operational in BC now, and there's several more in development.
I just want to back that up a little bit because, again, you are in it. You're in it.
I am.
And I think maybe some of the language that you used, maybe some people might not fully understand that. So if I simplify this message, it is the ability for a child that has experienced a terrible thing to not have to go tell that story umpteen times. Yeah. It is built to tell it once and then hopefully begin the road to recovery.
Yeah, it's really about beginning that process, and it's about that trauma-informed lens of, historically the criminal justice system is not well built for the people impacted by crime. That's why it's called the criminal justice system. It's really built around the criminality of that. So building centers like ours is really about putting the survivors at the center of the story. And, instead of children having to repeat these really difficult truths to multiple agencies on different days, which is, it's problematic for lots of reasons, but it's really about giving them a safe space where the team, everyone there is specialized to kids and to this work. And then really prioritizing the needs of kids in the way, the telling of that truth is the unburdening of the story and the beginning of a healing process. So if we can put everything they need to explore that healing process in one space, then we have a lot better opportunity to create a positive outcome for not just, the sort of the children primarily impacted by the abuse, but their siblings, their safe caregivers. It's really a family story of, how we wrap those services around and try to make sure that they have the best shot at a really bright and productive future.
So, Ginny, actually, first I want to say thank you for the work that you do, because there are only so many people that could do that work. And I'm telling you right now, I could not.
We hear that a lot at the CYC. And I will say, first of all, I would tip my hat to the front line. I think working on the front line of child abuse, whether you're a police officer, a child protection worker, a victim service, that takes extraordinary resilience and passion. So my hat, is tipped to those people. But I do think, if you talk to anyone that works within the walls of our center, I think they'll tell you the reason they're able to keep doing it is because they see the hopefulness of the environment that we've built. So, for me, that, as much as we serve children, sadly, every single day at the center, my passion as well is also for the big system change that we're achieving by doing it this way. So it's not just about every individual child, it's about the collective impact that we can have on changing a system that has really not functioned well for children for a really long time.
So still ticking the boxes for you in passion and purpose. And we've built out the system, built out the building. We've created the systems and the partners, and it's continuing to nurture that and making sure that we're caring for those impacted children and youth. But am I correct then in you're able to take another step that is more so towards the advocacy and speaking to the different levels of government to try and get ahead of this, or to fund? Are we are we in just today in the moment of what we have, or are we trying to, when you say big system changes, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's a great question with sort of multi-layered answers. So some of the system change that I would speak about is, the actual experience for children is changing because of the way we're doing the work. So a good example of that is on January 1st of last year, so not the one that we just passed, but the one prior.
2023.
2023, thank you.
No worries.
We launched remote testimony at our center. And that was years in the making of the idea that, when children who've been healing from an experience of abuse for 2-3 years, then being called into the criminal justice system to provide testimony in a courthouse, even if they testify from a separate room in a courthouse, there is this risk, and very high risk in some of the communities, that they will run into the accused in the parking lot or in the hallway, or those moments of interaction is all it takes to shatter a child's courage. So we worked very, very hard for the last almost 6 years now to achieve a remote testimony outcome. And now it exists. Now kids that are already working with us have the opportunity to apply to testify from the safe room at our center. So that's system change right there.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And it's
so is that spearheaded by the 53 CAC organizations?
Great question.
Okay.
So in this system change piece too, it's also really important to note that we do work collectively across the country. So there's a national network of child and youth advocacy centers, which is actually working towards a more formal entity of an association over time. And then there's also the BC Society of Child Advocacy Centers. I serve as the vice president for that organization. And we work really collectively to try to achieve these changes together and to make sure that all children are going to have access to these opportunities. That being said, every province is different. So BC was actually quite a ways behind on remote testimony for kids. Our neighbors in Alberta had been doing it for quite some time. But it really took the collective advocacy of all of us together, moving forward and trying to have these conversations at different community levels. Within Kelowna, this will sound sort of weird, but we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with a very young survivor that had moved here from another province. And we were asked to facilitate remote testimony for this child. And I didn't have to get anyone's permission to do that because it was interprovincial. So we did it, and we had the opportunity to work with that family to really provide feedback to our local Crown and also to the provincial Crown around how successful that experience was of having a kiddo testify from a safe space like ours, which is already a secure facility. It had all the things you would need.
Yep.
And that, I'm a huge believer that helped move the needle. That one child's experience helped change the world a little bit for kids in this province. And that's those pieces of, without centers like this one, we don't have the opportunity to make those changes because it does require these safe spaces to be able to make change. So yeah, I would say, it's regionally, each of us in our regions are creating the change we can in our own communities, but then that collective provincial work, and then even further to that national work, really trying to change the whole system little by little.
So before I step away from anything operational or questioning around CAC, is there anything that you want to ask of the listeners of this or the community, or is there any message that you want to share?
I think a few things. The first is, gratitude to our community, because this center exists because of our community. This center was entirely funded through community level fundraising. It continues to be primarily funded through the community and through donors and grants and things like that. So, I think it's important for people to know that work like this cannot be assumed. It does have to be supported, and we really need people who continue to stand by our side to keep doing so, because that's the only reason we're able to make some of these changes. And I would say the other thing that I would call on the community to do is, also treat our website and our organization as a source of understanding what child abuse is, how it impacts our community, and try to become informed. It's tough stuff to talk about, but it's actually a really prolific problem. And people, the more aware they are of what to watch for in the signs of abuse, what to do if you suspect abuse, all of those pieces, we're just starting to embark on a really big dialogue in the community around human trafficking and the trafficking of children through this community. It's really important. Through this community. It's really important for people to become informed because it's the only way we change the outcomes is with a really informed and aligned community. on understanding these challenges and how they're unfolding and what the solutions are.
I'm going to put you on the spot, and you can decline.
Okay.
Would you, and maybe I'll decline myself, would you be willing to come on regularly to educate or talk to community on signs and
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think
educate?
what I could say is our center could certainly be part of that. I don't know that it would always necessarily be me. I think, the goal is that really putting these experts, we have amazing people at our center that, I'm happy to do it, but I also would really want to, if we were to do that, include some of those frontline professionals who can help teach and educate and inform, because it's a big part of, as a child and youth advocacy center, part of our responsibility is prevention. If I could work myself out of a job, that would be the best possible outcome because we didn't need a center like ours in this community anymore. But in the meantime, the goal really has to be to help people understand that the statistics around child abuse are that 1 in 3 children will be impacted by significant or severe child abuse in their lifetime. So,
those are terrible statistics.
They're terrible statistics. And I remember someone saying to me, because I have children, I have 2 kids, they're saying, the next time this is a little bit younger at the time, but next time you're carpooling and you have 6 kids in your car, look in the rearview mirror and remind yourself that 2 out of 6 of them will, or are experiencing something that is difficult for most of us to imagine. And when you put it like that, then you start to understand this, it's everyone's responsibility. And if you're thinking about it, the question you have to ask yourself is, what if you're right?
Ugh. Okay.
Complicated stuff.
It is. But I think it's something we as a community have to seek out knowledge and be able to participate in helping curb this.
Absolutely. And there are things you can do. Like, it's really about being informed and being aware and trusting your instincts a little bit too.
So moving on to something very positive, and that is the Women of Influence recognition that you received in November of this year. You were the one that was recognized as RBC Canadian Woman Entrepreneur Awards Social Change.
Yeah.
So, Ginny, there are how many thousands of women?
Well, my understanding is there was 11,000 nominations in 7 categories for those awards this year, which is quite something to think about.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, so there was 7 award categories, 5 of them in the sort of corporate for-profit structure, and then 2 in the not-for-profit social services sector. So yeah, I was nominated. The whole process was about a year actually in the making, and quite a really profound process in the sense of because it's led by RBC. They do a really deep dive and due diligence, and which was a really amazing experience because it's also just really validating to see big organizations recognize when your organization is well run and when it's efficient and lean and all the things our donors and community should be able to expect from our organizations. I think it speaks to that. But for me, this award, that being nominated was so exciting because of the category name, social change. That is really the thing that drives me in continuing in this workspace is the journey to improving justice systems for children is so far. It's so long. There's so much to do still. So knowing that we're achieving it, that we're checking the boxes, and there's small wins along the way as we work towards some of these bigger changes. But that social change award was really an acknowledgement of what CYACs are doing to change the system. And for me, even though my name was on that award, I think it was really an award that recognized 53 centers across the country that are really advocating that we can do this better and there's a better way to do it. And, for everyone on my team that shows up every day to, lead this vision. And we talk all the time about, in a center like ours, we lead with vision, not authority. Any one of these agencies could, opt out tomorrow, technically speaking, but they don't because they're aligned to the vision and they want to work together. And I think that's a real demonstration of social change is when you can bring agencies together who don't have to, they're choosing to work on a different way of doing something.
I think the work is incredible, and congratulations on being recognized.
I even got my husband to wear a suit. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal. You are also the manager of a rock band.
That's true. I am. That's a learning curve right now. Yeah, my youngest is a part of a three-piece trio. They're a sort of power trio in the rock world, and they're remarkable. They're 15 and 16 years old. They're writing all original music. They're kind of taking the music scene by storm, and they're the most grounded, wonderful teenagers who have this one of those dreams that most people think is so far out there, and yet they're kind of chasing it down, like one song at a time and one gig at a time. They're proving to everyone around them not to underestimate them. They're pretty great. So yes, I am also learning a whole bunch of stuff I never thought I would ever need to learn about managing a young rock band, which is very cool. There's 6 parents involved and everybody has a role, but it's pretty, that's fun stuff though. It's pretty rewarding.
I think it's so cute. We were talking before we came on air that a lot of the places that they're playing or they get their gigs are adult. You
can play here until alcohol. 10, but then you have to leave.
Go home and have milk and cookies and off to bed. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Ginny, what do you see? You said it at the beginning. There's no way I could have said to you 10 years ago, hey, do you want to win the most incredible award in social change? What do you think? Or you'd be the head of this center that does incredibly difficult and hard and important work, and there's so much more to do. So couldn't have predicted it, but I want to put you on the spot. What do you think the next 1, 3, 4, 5 years are for you?
Sure. First of all, I have to tell you a funny story about what you just said, because my 15-year-old daughter that we were just talking about was being interviewed by someone right when I was nominated originally for that award.
Okay.
And he said something to her about, oh, hey, isn't your mom up for some sort of award? And my 15-year-old said, yeah, I think she's something like the most important woman in Canada. I was like, well, thank you. I'm glad you think so, but that's not exactly right. But yeah, I think the next, for me in this workspace, the key is really about 2 things for me within child and youth advocacy. One is making sure that every child in our province has access to this model. It is an infinitely better way to support children, and right now it is not equitable. There are, many, many parts of this province where kids still don't have access to this type of model. And the other piece of that is making sure that work is sustainable. And, the fine balance that we need to try to achieve is this sort of blended place where the government of British Columbia is taking some level of responsibility for this work sustainably in an ongoing fashion. But we can never operate without community support, because community support is what gives us the freedom to be agile and to do things differently. The goal isn't ever to be fully funded through government programming, because with that comes limitations that you don't then get to be as responsive and agile. So it really is the blend of those 2 things, and trying to navigate forward, how do we get to a place where these centers will reliably be here forever, and making sure that there's access for all the kids in the province, country, to have access to a model that looks like this one, where people are working together on their behalf.
Ginny, thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us. And for those that are interested in learning more about the Child Advocacy Center,
it's a mouthful,
and Youth Advocacy Center, go online to the website, reach out.
Yeah, Child and Youth Advocacy Center of Kelowna.com. And and I thank you, Nikki. We say this all the time, that local storytelling like this means everything to centers like ours, because it's that 2-way street of the community understanding what we do and who we are, and when they might have need of us, but also for us just to be able to have that opportunity to educate and inform and strengthen the resilience of our community through education and information is key, and we don't get to do that without conversations like this one. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in.